You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
In a world filled with cigars, craft beer, comics, movies, and video games,
only two men are brave enough to search out all things nerdy.
It's the Cigar Nerds Podcast!
And welcome to the Cigar Nerds Podcast. I'm your host, Smokin' Joe.
I'm Brad Jackson.
And we're back from Dragon Con. So this is going to be our Dragon Con wrap-up show. So no spoiler warnings for you, because we're not talking about any new movies or anything. Not yet. Maybe next episode. But what we're smoking this week comes kind of courtesy of Dragon Con, because we met a new friend at the phone booth who ended up winning a box of Diesel cigars and gave them to us. So here's y'all something to review. So this week I am smoking the Diesel Wicked, which is a Pennsylvania broadleaf Maduro over Nicaraguan binders and fillers and a torpedo size. Very, wicked kind of.
Let's get wicked.
Yeah, that kind of goes with Dragon Con.
Because it's a wicked con.
Wicked man. And if you need to stay caffeinated while at con, you should crawl in the Strike Force. StrikeForceEnergy.com. Use your promo code Cigar Nerds for 20% off your order. Yeah, how many dragons have we done since we we started this? I think I need to count all the badges on the wall.
I think this is, 8 or 9, at least?
Maybe, yeah.
I think the first year, we didn't know about the press stuff, and then after that, we went full tilt, and...
Yeah, the only year we didn't go was the plague year. They canceled everything, and then the next year we went just as civilians so we could, enjoy ourselves. So we've really only... we've not missed a con. We've only, not been media, one con since we kind of started this thing. Yeah, so special shout out to our boy Diego, who. So if you see a lot of Diesel content on the channel for the next couple weeks, that's entirely his fault, because I got a whole 10 cigar sampler to work my way through. Well, with that, we're gonna get right into the Tale of the Dragon. Dragon Tales, isn't that a movie?
Yes.
All right. And welcome back. Like we just said, we survived our however manyth Dragon Con this was. I think we had saw around 70, 72 maybe thousand of your closest nerdy friends this weekend.
Yeah, I saw all of them.
Yeah, I had a doctor's appointment this morning, and doing blood work. I'm like, yeah, my sugar may be a little high because I just got back from vacation. They're like, oh, where'd you go? I'm like, I was at Dragon Con. They're like, what's that? I'm like, oh, no, that I don't have a point of reference I can give you to make you understand what we've been through. It's like Mardi Gras, but for nerds.
I think that's the best way I've heard it put.
Yeah.
I mean, in fact, there are beads.
I mean, is the badge ribbons the equivalent of the Mardi Gras beads? Because people are fairly, rabid collectors of those.
Yeah, I'm wondering, if that trend is going to go away at some point.
Have we peaked?
Well, I mean, I think some of the issue lies with folks maybe not understanding that, hey, this is just a gift and an informality. You're not entitled to such a thing where, people were buying stuff at the vendor hall and like, well, where's my ribbon? Like, you don't get a... What?
Because when it first started off, it was like, oh, I'm going to dress as whatever, and I'm going to get badge ribbons to go with my costume, and then if you recognize my costume, hey, cool. Or you see somebody walking around that's got, something cool on and be like, hey, here's a ribbon, honoring your thing. And now it's like become like super competitive. I mean,
I saw a girl post on Facebook, like, she had over 500 ribbons.
Jeez, it's not Pokemon, people. You don't have to catch them all.
That's kind of the beauty of Dragon Con, though. Like, literally, you can talk to cosplayers, take photos, just interact with random people to collect ribbons. You can do, the whole swag and seek thing. You can, go and get celebrity signatures. You can panel hop. You can just literally sit back and do nothing and just people watch.
Which I think that's mostly what I made it to one panel this year. I think it's like the worst I've been for attending panels this year. It's like I made it to one.
Dude, most years I don't even go to a panel. And there were legit panels that I forgot about, but we were in the middle of other shit and I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to break away and go see this panel.
Like I say, as much as we didn't panel, we did spend a lot of time hanging out, talking to people, and like having just a good time socializing with people, which to me, that's kind of like the best thing of the con is meeting so many random ass people and just having conversations that you wouldn't normally have on a daily basis.
Or just, the people that, you just become friends with through con, and, every year it's like, hey, good to see you again. It's like we never left.
Which we didn't see our one buddy. We always have that one guy that comes up to us at the Hyatt smoking area every year, but I don't think I saw him this year.
Nope.
If you're out there and you're listening, we missed you, man. We didn't.
we were keeping our eyes peeled.
We didn't see you this time around. Oh, but yeah, some of the random. The night we went to, because I don't think they did it last year. They did it a couple years ago, but the pop-up joystick game bar. we went there early one morning when we were burning some time, played some games. Then we came back for like one of the night sessions and go to the bar, get drinks, go play some games and stuff. And after a couple games, like, hey, we need to go do another drink. Let's go do a tequila shot. So we go back to the bar, and they've switched bartenders on us, and now there's a dude dressed like Gambit. And I was like, shit, now we're doing shots with Gambit. This is officially Dragon Con. And he's like, no, mon ami, wait. And then pours himself a shot. He's like, now you're doing shots with Gambit. We're like, fuck yes. I'm about to make a name for myself.
I got on the high score of the pinball machine, but I didn't know how to actually like input the initials. I was like, what do? I don't remember this.
This is ancient technology. I mean, I was playing some like Mortal Kombat 1. I couldn't remember any of the fatalities, but I still remembered all of Liu Kang's moves. I'm like, oh, there's something a little touch of autism here, because I can remember this shit from like 30 years ago. I can't remember what the fatality is, but I remember all the Liu Kang moves.
Yeah. I mean, it's just such a it's just hard to describe, because there's just so much going on at any given moment that...
And even in the... Because I haven't been over to the gaming section in a while, not since it moved over to America's Mart 2. So I made a point to go down there to film some stuff. And, go check out our YouTube channel. Our video episode is coverage of Dragon Cons there. But there was so much stuff in that gaming hall. It was like... There's a huge section of people playing card games. There's a giant library of board games for anybody who wants to play actual board games. There's another arcade over there with not only like pinballs and classics. They had freaking Killer Instinct, but then also like weird Japanese games I've never heard of. And then there was a whole nother section for like the miniature gamers and even people who are not even gaming. They're just there like painting models and stuff. And then upstairs you had all your RPG, D&D, tables and tables of people running games up there. And then for some reason the FBI, the FBI had a recruiting booth. I walked by and they're like, "You want a bracelet?" I'm like, "Is it a tracking device?"
But I mean, I think, like your ability to think critically, to problem solve, to piece together bits of information to create a story, like, I kind of feel like that's pretty investigative.
Yeah. I don't know about finding like field agents, but yeah, if they're looking for like analysts and people who like, kind of do more on the digital side of investigations, yeah, that's probably a decent place to find some people, would be a Dragon Con Gaming Hall.
I do got to say that the interviews we got this year were dude, we were almost 100%.
Yeah, because we had originally we didn't get any. We were approved for Walk of Fame interviews, but it's always luck of the draw. You submit your requests. There's no guarantee you're going to get them. So we didn't get any, and I probably aimed a little too high. There was a lot of Star Trek people there this year. Yeah, so none of our celebrity interviews got approved, but we had 6 great like non-Walk of Fame. Everyone was very interested. We only had one not show up, but then we got an extra interview that hadn't been on our list, so we still ended up with like 6 interviews. We talked to we revisited one of our early guests, Stephen Grenade. Talked to him about what's new in science and his games and stuff. And like I said, all these interviews are going to be probably some of them this episode, some of the next episode, but did a talk to some Kelly Fast from NASA, talked to Ilanka Doonan, who's a cryptologist. We talked to Hawkins Austin, who's a writer and also does science stuff. And I'm forgetting a name. Oh, yeah, and then Timothy Zahn, which was probably the best interview of the weekend, because we interviewed him once long time ago, and he's had several books out since then. But to kind of let you behind the scenes, most of these Dragon Con interviews, we get a 15 to 20-minute window. And this time we hit our mark, and I'm like looking at my watch, like getting ready to kind of bring this thing in for landing. I'm like, well, I guess we're about to get kicked out of here, but I guess we're at the end of the day. And Timothy's like, I ain't got nowhere to go. If y'all want to keep talking, we can keep talking. We're like, well, fuck, if they're not kicking us out, yeah, sure. So we ended up doing like a 40-minute interview with Timothy Zahn. It was great.
I mean, it's always just amazing, to see, the level of, people's passion and just knowledge in all of their various areas. I mean, people are like, dude, you're not a scientist. How do you even have a conversation with a scientist?
Emily Zarka, too, who's a literary professor and basically a expert on monsters, or at least the literary monsters and folklore stuff. So yeah, I almost enjoy the non-celebrity interviews more than the few celebrity interviews we've gotten, because I may be familiar with insert movie here, but I don't know shit about cryptography, or we do a science segment here, but it's mostly me bullshitting and reading stuff off the internet. But it's I mean,
that's literally our entire podcast.
Yeah, but like you said, every time we get these interviews, I end up learning something, and all these people are like super passionate about what they do. So it's most of the time it's like I don't even have to ask that many questions. We just kind of key them up and let them go. And like I said, they always just kind of tell us stuff that we don't know, and that always leads to like more questions. Like so we were talking to one of because most of these interviews have been like group interviews, and somebody's like, well, do you have like a set of questions you're going to? I'm like, dude, that means we prepare. And to give ourselves some credit, it's not that we don't prepare. It's like we look up a bunch of stuff beforehand, but I never bring like written questions into an interview, because I like to be more like what we're doing here, which is like a conversation. I'm going to ask a question. What you tell me is probably going to key up other questions.
Yeah, so see where the conversation goes, and like for me, I like the, it gets people like, oh crap, what are you about to ask? Everything like
you walk in with a stack of questions that they kind of get a little bit like, oh no, this is an interrogation, not a conversation. So we've developed our style of doing things. So I noticed there was a lot more, I guess, like bars and stuff this year.
Yeah,
like actual And
I'm not opposed
companies.
to the bars, but they all create choke points, like in the main thoroughfares. Like, dude, you could easily set up shop right outside, the Marriott or whatever as people are coming in. Not necessarily
or even like
right
in
on the atrium floor.
Yeah, or in like the corners or whatnot, back where they used to have the old Papa John's pizza booths. But there was like a full-on freaking meadery right in the middle of the damn busiest part of the con, like on the atrium level. I was like, shit's already crowded, and we're gonna put like a giant Viking
which was cool.
Tavern. It looked cool, but yeah, it was kind of wild. We're like, how's this gonna navigate?
I will say that the concert experiences this year were pretty great for the couple that we attended, seeing Power Glove and
there's always like a lot of say kind of like folk or goth music, but ever since the Spree started showing up, we've gotten like some pretty decent nerd metal. Like we had the two main concerts we went to on Friday night were Power Glove and Galactic Empire. If you don't know who they are, look them up. They're great. Power Glove is like metal covers of cartoon and video game themes, pretty much.
They've been around for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I remember seeing them like a long time ago opening for MC Chris back in the day. And then Galactic Empire, this is the first time I've ever seen them. They're kind of like Cybertronic Spree, where it's a bunch of people in cosplay. And I think they probably got in trouble at some point, because if you go back and watch their old videos, they're in legit, and they do covers of Star Wars songs. So like, you watch some of their old videos on YouTube, and they're literally dressed like Star Wars characters. But now I'm like, they probably got a cease and desist because they're more dressed like generic Star Wars characters.
Well, I mean, I wonder too, like,
because I'm like, you watch their YouTube, it's like, Darth Vader, Stormtrooper, Boba Fett's the drummer, and now it's like random Mandalorian is the drummer, kind of Vader-esque Sith Lord, kind of tie-ish pilot outfit. And it's like, they may have been like, Disney, like, nah, y'all can't like make money dressed as our characters, so they've had to maybe like make it a little more generic. But I mean, you still like, all right, yeah, these guys are probably Star Wars guys.
But at the same time too, like, I think the weather plays an impact. Like, it was definitely warm this year. Yeah,
I mean, we had decent weather the week before, and we've had decent weather this week, and it was like balls hot in Atlanta. Oh, yeah, there was more than one like heat casualty I saw. We're like, especially out there on the at the Hilton, where everyone's doing the big cosplay photo shoots. There was a couple of people that like dropped out and had to be escorted out. Always remember to hydrate, people.
Yeah, we did get to witness the birth of the drone cult. I think that's probably
yes, and that clip is in our YouTube video, because we made the joke. I'm not taking credit for this joke, because I've heard several people say it. Like, can we not make it through one Dragon Con without another cult being created? And if y'all are not familiar with the cults of Dragon Con, if something weird happens, it becomes like a meme times 5,000. Like, where one year FedEx decided to put up a cardboard cutout in one of the hallways, and people vandalized it. And then people started worshiping said vandalized cardboard cutout. And now every year, people build a shrine to John, the FedEx guy. And it's been like 4-5 years now. It's every year.
The thing I don't understand is like leaving the food and stuff behind.
Yeah, people just leave like offerings to. I think they finally had to like tear it down because there was ants. But so we're out smoking at the at the Hilton, and a freaking drone crashes in the middle of the
I
party.
thought somebody dropped a bottle in it. Shattered.
Yeah, because I mean it was loud. Like, yeah, somebody's drone. I guess they clipped a building or something, but it just dropped out of the sky, and immediately people went over and started worshiping it. And I'm like, holy crap! Like, we've just witnessed the next Dragon Con cult. We'll see if there's like, T-shirts and signs made for the the drone, or even down in.
I mean, which granted, like. Just so happened nobody was standing in that spot, because that would have been bad.
Yeah.
Like, I think we would have been rendering aid at that point.
I mean, there was a few people that ran and got under the stairs. They're like, are we under attack? Like, is there more things falling? Hell, even down in, media relations, like, the last night I went over there, and there's, like, this table covered in rubber ducks. And, like, at first I thought it was, just a swag giveaway thing. And they're like, no, we literally put one big-ass rubber ducky out there, and it kept growing. People kept walking by and adding to the ducks. So now we've got a table of ducks. I was like, well, here comes another Dragon Con cult. I thought it was just the Jeepers. Apparently the media relations take donations in the form of ducks.
Maybe they all drive Jeeps. Who knows?
There was a mummy duck that had spiders on it. I kind of wanted to take that one. It was pretty nice.
Any new firsts for you this year?
There was one. Now I can't remember what it was.
I went to the parade.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's it. We had a break between interviews, so we happened to wander outside, and it's like, oh, the parade's going on. Because normally we have, like, either we partied too hard the night before and I'm not getting up to go to the parade, or we have interviews scheduled during the parade. So this is like the first time I've not watched it on YouTube and like actually went outside and like, hey, here's the parade. Saw the whatever the Jawas. Apparently the Jawas have their own club. It's not just the 501st and the Mandalorian Mercs. There's like the Great Jawa Horde, who had like a huge sandcrawler.
Oh yeah.
That it was kind of painted like the Mystery Machine. It was wild.
Always love seeing the vehicles.
And the horror cosplayers with like just a whole like horde of Jasons and Leatherface and I think there's a new movie coming out, but there was a bunch of the Terrifier cosplay this year.
Oh yeah,
I've seen a bunch of those guys running around.
Art is big. That's another cult. That might actually be a cult.
A real cult. Oh. Yeah, and like I said, the one panel I went to, I saw Danny Trejo finally in person, and his whole story is pretty interesting. You know, he kind of told, you know, how he got into acting, and it was like almost like completely by accident, and you know, kind of even hit the whole starting Trejo's Tacos. Someone was like, "Hey, you started a restaurant." He's like, "Yeah, Trejo's Tacos." And then the next time he saw, the guy showed up with like a business plan. We're like, "Hey, let's do it." And he's like, "All right, you already did the work. I guess we're doing it. Tacos." Oh, I did walk through the autograph hall, so I saw Nathan Fillion. Didn't make it into any of his panels. Saw Ming Nenhua, if I'm pronouncing that even closely. I can't remember his name. The guy who played Luke Cage in the Netflix Marvel stuff. Saw Seth Green. I saw freaking Supernatural boy, Jared Padalecki.
Yeah, I was supposed to go and see if I could get a Trejo signature, and I didn't even go into the Walk of Fame once this year.
Yeah, the time I went down there, he was not there at the time, so I didn't get a Trejo autograph, and I never made it back over that way. The other bands we saw were, not to say they weren't good, but they weren't my kind of cup of tea.
That's all I can say. It's just not my taste. Like, you know, everybody's got their own knacks, and, you know, I mean, give it up to Dragon Con. You know, it's not just EDM. It's not just goth industrial. Like, you know, there's usually an act for everyone. Yeah,
I mean, made it into what the fuck's the brain's still fried. The goth band that's there every freaking year for like the last 20 years.
Crook Shadows.
Yes, made it in there, and that place was packed. They were running a little late, and by that time we were a little drunk, so we didn't stay for the show. But the crowd that turned out from them is like, as long as those guys have been coming to Dragon Con, they still like just draw in like a huge freaking crowd.
I mean, I remember, way back in the infancy, Crux Shadows was the crutch of con.
Yeah, I mean, it's been at least 20 years. I mean, I don't know what the official time, but I remember going like as, a younger guy, and like they're there every year. And that dude still looks pretty much the same. Like, that guy is not aged. It's like the Dread Pirate Roberts. They switch him out every couple years for a different Dread Pirate Roberts, because bro looks exactly the same. So, first night of the con, we have our traditional red phone booth visit with the
shout
Dragon
out
Con
to Red Phone Booth, man. They went all out this year.
Yeah, normally they just host our party, but this year they like kind of hooked us up for the whole weekend. They repainted the Red Phone Booth TARDIS blue for Dragon Con, so even the bar was cosplaying. And then people from Dragon Con, they were given like buy one get one cigars, and they had like every night at like 5:00 they had like a free pasta dinner buffet thing. I finally went over there Sunday night and got some pasta, and I was running low on cigars at that time, so I had to go restock some cigars. And as much fun as it was on Thursday night, when I went there Sunday, there was like 5 or 6 people in there. I'm like, oh, this is like a nice break from the chaos.
I mean, that's the thing is, we did make a new discovery.
There's a whole other smoking area that we didn't know about.
If, you need to get away from the crowds, that was kind of I never knew that was there.
Yeah, like someone's like, hey, did you go up to this floor? I'm like, I didn't know that was a thing. And not only was it like nobody up there was like chairs and stuff. Like, holy shit, we can sit down. We're not all fighting over the same 3 picnic tables.
It's funny that we won't mention where that is.
Yeah, because we're trying to keep it for ourselves. I mean, you miss out on because half the fun of smoking where we normally smoke is just like all the cosplayers coming by for photos. We're just gonna sit and watch the people. But if you need a break, that area was nice to go to. But yeah, you miss out on the people watching. But if you need just a break from the insanity, it was not a bad place to go hang out. Speaking of cosplays, before we get into what we think is the cosplay of the con, because every year we're like, all right, what's I don't want to say overused, but most, the one we saw represented the most. If there was a pie chart of Dragon Con, this one would be the biggest slice. But before we get into that, what's some interesting ones that you saw that you were kind of impressed with this year?
I don't even remember. Like there was so much that I'm still processing, dude. Like,
yeah, we always do this like
I'm a big horror fan, so like pretty much all the horror costumes I'm pretty much a sucker for. I don't know why I don't participate more in the Dragon Con horror group. Or
the one I saw I thought was cute was because there's always the guy dressed as Michael Myers that has the wall of ivy around him. Well, there was can't tell from the costumes. I can't tell if they were older or just disabled, but there was a Michael Myers that was having to use a walker, and he had turned his walker into the ivy wall.
I mean, that's always
cool as shit.
One of the things that I like to see is the way that people customize their means of mobility, or the other ones that have their service animals decked to the nines and stuff.
Oh yeah, even the service animals are cosplaying. I mean, I saw 2 corgis dressed as Scorpion and Sub-Zero last year, and the hotels are trying, at least the Hilton always cosplays, and this year it was Beetlejuice themed with Beetlejuice cocktails and foods and like freaking sandworms everywhere, and it was kind of
And we
Kinda
went
cool.
another year where we didn't visit the Westin.
Yeah, we went to the former Sheraton once, but we couldn't get into the panel. The other panel we tried to go to, but yeah, that's all. Because I like going to the night fighting over there. That's about the main thing I do over there. But we had like conflicting schedules with the interviews that day, and never made it over to watch the Knights beat the hell out of each other. But if you're going to Dragon Con, do yourself a favor, go watch the Palmetto Knights. They always put on a good show. It's like full contact. It's like going to the Ren Fest, but it's like full contact. They're beating the hell out of each other. It's like WWE with armor. It's great.
How'd you feel about the lines? I like
Like I said, we didn't go to a lot of panels, so we didn't get into a lot of lines. But the one time I went to Dealer Hall, it was the longest line I have ever gotten into, but it moved. Like, we were in within an hour.
Yeah.
Even though it was like the longest I've ever seen that line.
Like, I think people just, look at the surface
we got in there
and, get intimidated, and it's, you actually go and wait, and you realize, oh, this thing is actually moving quite efficiently.
I mean, that was one time when I went to Trejo's panel, I expect that line to be like around the building. So I go down there just to see where it's lining up, and I don't see anything. And they're like, "You here for Trejo?" I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "Oh, go on in." I'm like, "Oh, sweet," because I got busy and I showed up like 10 minutes before the panel started. So I was like, I just went in there to see, because sometimes depending on what room it's in, they line put the line down a different street. So I just kind of went down to see where to get in line. I don't see a line. I'm like, I walk over there. I'm like, "Hey, where's the line?" They're like, "Yeah, go on in." I'm like, "Oh, sweet." So I got lucky on that.
We did wait 2 hours and something for last night on Autoron party.
Yeah, because
that was a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, because that's probably always one of the biggest parties at Dragon Con, and we tried to get into the burlesque show, and they're like, past this point in the line, there's no guarantee you're getting in. So we're like, well, shit, let's go check out Alderaan.
I mean, that was my only real frustration is, if you've got a group, don't get in line till your group's there. Like, I kind of hate that shit where it's there's 70 people in front of you, and then all of a sudden everybody's got 3 or 4 people walking up to join them in line, and it's like, I get it, it's people.
Oh, but speaking of horror stuff too, I saw Jason Deadpool and Leatherface Deadpool. I thought that was pretty cool. And some of the mashup outfits too. There was
saw quite a bit of Spaceballs represented this year.
Yes, like I've always seen a couple bars, but there was some balls walking around, and what was the one, the Bob Ross Doctor Who Dalek, Bob Ross, and there was a couple Weird Owls, and at one point there was like I don't know what it was, but he had an accordion, and I'm like, I'm not sure if that's because it was when I think we were sitting outside and they were having like the Naruto anime photo shoots, and this guy's like some weird ass outfit and but he has curly hair and a accordion. I'm like, I don't know if that's an actual character from this cartoon or if it's a mashup Weird Al. I can't tell. And the Mandalorian, like, not just like the Mandalorians, but so many. That's like the mashup Mandalorian. So like I saw a old Marriott carpet Mandalorian. I saw a Moon Knight Mandalorian. It was like I saw it was father and son, I think, but it was Macho Man Mandalorian Savage. So they were like, it was fucking Macho Man outfit made Mandalorian style. It was.
We did see the Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, it was like the Incredible Hulk Hogan. A lot of rock band cosplay this year. I mean, I saw a couple Slashes. Saw a whatever, is it Electric Callboy? The dudes with like the disco ball motorcycle helmets.
Saw Elvis a few times.
Oh yeah, I think I saw an Elvis Mandalorian too. Oh, so all right, I got a couple candidates in my head. What do you think was the cosplay of the con this year? And for y'all at home, we normally don't count Mandalorians or Stormtroopers because they're there every year. I mean, they have costuming clubs that come, so you're always going to see a lot of those. But what's something that because last year it was clearly Barbies and kids.
Oh, yes.
Fucking everywhere, which I didn't see but a handful of them this year, because that one kind of burned its way out fairly quickly. But what did you think was...
Well, I think my opinion got skewed because a photo shoot must have went out, and I was like, I was in a sea of Deadpools, and up until that point, I'd seen a couple of Deadpools.
Yeah, because Deadpools is almost like the Mandalorians and the Stormtroopers, because there's usually a lot of Deadpools, and we're with the new movie
like
out.
There must be new parties and such that, us as old men are not privy to that people are going to these days.
Yeah, because we expected to see a lot of pools, but we didn't really see that many until Sunday night, and that's when they had the Deadpool photo shoot, and it's like freaking all day Sunday. I'm like, oh, here's all the pools we've been missing. But with that, I did like some of the new pools, because they was like, like I already mentioned Jason and all that, but I saw several pools carrying the Wolverine skeleton around doing the Deadpool movie opening. But if I don't count pools, like the two for me that I was like definitely was big this year was Wolverines. Like I saw Wolverines like every single night, and like a ton of like the different variants. Like a lot of the white suit patch Wolverines I saw walking around. Several of like the new movie outfit. I even saw one guy that had from the fight scene that had like the swords and everything stuck in him. I thought was pretty cool. So I
did see quite a few Peters.
Yeah, saw some Peters, and then also people dressed as Peter.
You must have went to a entirely different party than where I went.
But yeah, I think Wolverine. There was a lot more Wolverines this year, and then also Beetlejuice cosplayed. That was probably the other thing I saw a ton of. Not just a ton of Beetlejuices, but there was like I saw Lydia's. I saw I can't remember their name, but the two ghosts that was living in the house, Gina Davis and Baldwin. I saw a lot of those cosplays. I even saw a lot of the shrunken head Bob guys.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was a ton of Beetlejuice shit this year. So that might be the thing of the con this year.
And rightfully so.
A couple good Hellboys too, because I was going around pretty much. This is the first year we made ribbons, and I probably still have. I ordered way too many. And pretty much anyone I saw smoking a cigar, I'd give him a ribbon. But yeah, all the Hellboys, I'm like, if they had a prop cigar, I'm like, you're getting a ribbon, even if it's a fake cigar. One guy had a real cigar. He's like, this ain't a prop. As soon as I get outside, I'm smoking this thing. Which is funny. I ran into one guy. I'd wandered down to the con suite, and there was some good food in the con suite this year. I haven't been down there in a while. But I'm like walking back to the elevator, and I'm wearing a funky shirt. And this guy stops me. I thought he was about to ask me something about my shirt, and he's like, "Hey, where'd you get that Cigar Nerds ribbon?" And I'm like, lucky from you. I am the Cigar Nerd. Here you go. And he's like, hell yeah. Oh. And then my drunk ass ran into the Drinking Bros and harassed those guys. That was fun. If you've not watched it, Drinking Bros Podcast has a new YouTube show called Street Gonzo, where they send out one of their reporters to just basically interview drunks. And they go to different cities that are big parties, and this is the first year they showed up at Dragon Con, and I saw it on Instagram, and I was like, dude, we got to go, because they were at the Marriott at the time. We're like, we got to go find the Drinking Bros. I want to give those guys shit. Walked around the Marriott, didn't see him, so we went, smoked a cigar, and it was Sunday night. We had finished all our kind of reporter duties, so we're like, all right, let's finish off all the alcohol. So I'd finished my first flask, and we're getting ready to go back to the hotel room to like re-up, and walk back in at the Hilton, and they're there interviewing somebody dressed as whatever Vinku, the bad guy from Stranger Things. And as soon as they get done, I'm like, Treekin Bros, and I just wanted to talk to these guys. They turn around, threw the camera on me. I'm like, fuck, now I'm on this show. I'm like, so I just start talking shit. We'll see if it makes the final edit. But then we went around, hit some stuff, and then we ran back into those guys when they weren't like filming. And hell, we ended up hanging around talking to them for about 15, 20 minutes. So that was fun. Good dudes. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see when that episode comes out if I was drunk enough to make the edit.
No way.
Yeah, probably not.
I will say I did consume more rum buckets than every year previous.
We finally found the secret to the rum bucket. You just got to pour more alcohol in it. It makes a good mixer. Because we're always like suspicious of the rum buckets and like, we're like, how much alcohol is actually in those things? Because it's always pre-made.
Not much.
It's always pre-made. Like, so unless you see them pouring it in, it's like, is this good alcohol in it? So yeah, we just like pull out our flasks and topped them off. And you didn't even bother to walk away at one point. You like literally bought the bucket, set it there right in front of the guy, and started pouring more rum into it. And he's like, "Oh yeah, just go for it."
He's like, "Yeah, I'd do the same."
Yeah.
Like, why am I gonna pay $6 for a shot? Really? Like, this needs a lot more than a shot. I was trying to go full pirate, but it was a flat service. You got to take advantage of things.
Yeah. And the
I'd already paid and tipped.
I can't remember the name of the company now, but the ice cream pops that they were selling everywhere, because we ended up getting some free ones because we're testing a new flavor. So, you get a free one. Just tell us what you think of it, because it was like pecan flavored ice cream. It was actually pretty good. It was like, I was like, not bad.
I meant to try some of the other flavors and totally forgot.
Never got back around to it. I did go to get a snack at one point, and the Hyatt had like a custom Death Star dessert. It was basically like a big ass cake pop, but it was like a little Death Star, like filled with like cake and icing and stuff, and it was sitting on like the base of it was like a little pecan pie puck thing. And I was like, fucking tasty. Yeah, when I went for my diabetes checkup, I was like, hey, everything's been good for the last year, but I just got back from Dragon Con, and so if it's a little elevated this time, it's not unusual. We don't have to like up my medication. I just was an asshole last week. So we'll see what my blood sugar came back as when I get my results back. It's like I eat healthy all year long just to go fully off the rails in the Dragon Con. You like make enough progress that you got some room to not completely undo your your healthy habits.
I mean, I tried to maintain somewhat, but there was a lot of fried and a lot of bread and a lot of carbs.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like,
but I did walk up. We walked up the stairs a couple times. I'm like, I didn't get out of breath. Maybe I'm finally in Dragon Con shape. That workout video I did was a good warm up.
You just gotta stretch.
Yeah. Well, that was the main thing. It was like freaking that day we did the dealer hall. I don't know what it is about the flooring in the dealer hall, but that's like the only day my feet hurt was like walking around the dealer hall.
Well, it's funny to me because my feet start feeling uncomfortable, and immediately after I get off that floor, I'm like, okay, better.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about that concrete floor. It wasn't necessarily my feet, but it was like my freaking calves were like cramping by the time we got back to the hotel. Speaking of which, did you see anything new and unusual in the dealer hall this year, or just kind of same old, same old?
I mean, for me, it always seems sort of same old-ish,
And maybe I'm just not looking hard enough, because I always see people posting stuff online. I'm like, oh, that looks cool. I completely missed that when I was there.
And that's the thing, is there's so much that, like, unless I'm on a mission for a specific thing, like, dude, I'm the epitome of the male shopper. It's like, oh, I want a kilt. Guess what I'm going to do? Straight to where the kilt is. I'm not looking at, So there's probably so much that I walked by that I didn't even see, or just saw so much that I can't remember. Like
or
that's...
one of those, my problem is, like, I'll see something early on, and I'm like, I don't want to carry that around. I'll come back for it, and by the time I walk through everything, I'm like too tired to go back for it. I'm like, so now it's like if I see something, I have to buy it then, or I'm not coming back for it. Like, I did add this little mythosaur metal skull that's now on our set, and I picked up a couple shirts. I want another one of the horror movie Hawaiian shirts, but the guy just had the same ones he had last year. I didn't see any new designs. I did see one company that makes, and I don't remember the name of them, but they make custom gaming tables. And this year they had some new ones that had like basically a TV sunk into the top of the table, so you could kind of, put up whatever map you wanted for your game just on this like monitor that was like actually sunk into the table. I thought it was kind of cool. I saw it online and I couldn't find it. We're in there, but there was somebody had like custom Dragon Con whiskey decanter sets that came with like glasses and a decanter and everything that had the Dragon Con logo on it. I'm like, I kind of wanted one of those.
I did see it, but I think we were separated at that point.
Like I missed it. I saw it online, but I didn't see it. It may have been sold out by the time I wandered through, but I never saw it.
But with me, whiskey never sits long enough to really decant. It's pretty much like, hey, there's whiskey. It needs to be consumed.
So, I mean, we can wrap this up a little early because, like I said, we've got a lot of interviews for y'all to listen to. Any other final thoughts? Anything cool that you can think of that you saw or did at con?
I went to con. I survived con.
We didn't get any pie this year, though. Like, we didn't make any ourselves, and we didn't purchase any while we were there.
My only... And I think with me traveling, like it used to be cool, to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to be in a hotel for 5 days. I spend so much time in hotels that I'm like, it doesn't do it for me. I'm like, God damn it. Like, can I bring my own bed to con?
Get you a whoopee. I saw some good G.I. Joe cosplay this year. I still kind of want to do a shipwreck outfit. Like, I don't know. This year, I guess, has been busy. Because last year I did Moon Knight. This year I was like, man, I don't want to carry a costume. I'm just gonna go as minimalist as possible. And I past wearing pants to the phone booth. I'm like, I'm gonna kilt the whole weekend. I'm not dressing up. I did put on my steampunk attire one night, but other than that, like I didn't have time to make any costumes. But yeah,
I mean, my thing is like,
I eventually want to.
I don't want to carry a lot of shit. I don't want to have to keep up with a lot of shit. Like, I'm going to go, I'm going to be comfortable, and I'm going to enjoy myself.
Yeah. I mean, the one time I dressed up last year was fun, but I need to make some modifications to that outfit, and I just never got around to it, and I didn't create anything new. But other than that, like I said, maybe next year I'll get around to doing that shit. And kind of as I wrap up, final thoughts on this here cigar, little oaky, kind of... leathery, a little bit of pepper, a little bit of espresso, and it's definitely full body, full strength, which I always like the stronger cigars, and this one definitely falls into that category. So yeah, once again, thanks to Diego. Check out the Diesel Wicked. Definitely come to Dragon Con next year. I'll probably have more ribbons because there's plenty left over. And if you didn't make it to Dragon Con and you want a ribbon and you're local, give us a holler. Well, like I said, I'll hook you up. I still got plenty of those things to give out. And yeah, also thanks to the Red Phone booth. If you're in Atlanta or they have another location in Buckhead, check them out. They were wonderful hosts for the weekend. And thanks to Dragon Con Media Relations for once again inviting us to come and play in y'all's world. Like I said, we always have fun. Like I said, I can't recommend going to Dragon Con enough. Only buy your tickets early because price goes up throughout the year. So if you buy them right now, it's going to be the cheapest you're gonna get them.
Like you can buy the 5-day pass for
every couple of months it goes up a little bit.
Like
so yeah,
get $20, more than what a day pass is going to run you if you wait.
Yeah, I think they sold out on like day passes.
Oh yeah. Saturday for sure sold out, which. That is one of the things.
We're always worried they're going to cap the 5-day tickets as well, but so far they've not. But they've started capping the single day passes, Really, Saturday was the only day that it was like stupid crowded. The rest of it was like decent crowds, but not.
Which it was kind of weird. Did you notice Sunday to me seemed to have more of a party vibe than what Saturday did?
I think everybody else was like us. They're like, it's the last day. We got to get rid of all the alcohol, so we don't have to take it home. I think like Sunday had a late start. Like, I think people that went hard Saturday, because like we got out early Saturday. We had like one last interview, and it was fairly spaced out. But then by the time sundown hit, it was like almost peak Saturday.
Well, I know Sunday was a late start
hard
for me for sure. I was like, I think I slept 3 hours fucking Thursday night, 2 hours and something Friday, and
yeah, I ended up crashing early Saturday. You were up later than me, and then so like you crashed Sunday morning, and I was like, since I went to bed early Saturday, I was up and roaming pretty early Sunday morning, and then we both went fairly hard Sunday night, and we didn't do anything. We like woke up Monday and we're like, ready to go home. I don't feel like
I need a
getting in line for
detox,
anything.
and
and my voice too, because I smoked so many cigars and drank so much whiskey, so we can just like, if you listen to the interviews, you can almost tell what order we did them in, because my voice gets deeper as the weekend goes. Like by Sunday, I probably sound like Sam Elliott. I'm so raspy. I still haven't like fully recovered, but hey, no con crud. Knock on laminate. Don't have any wood. Oh, yeah, there's some wood. All right, I'll knock on wood.
I got a twinge of something. I'm not sure quite what it is, but we'll say allergies.
Yeah. But that's all we got for you this week. Check us out on cigarnerdpodcast.com. We're on the ESO Network at esonetwork.com. Instagram, X, Facebook at Cigar Nerd Pod. We are on YouTube at Cigar Nerd Podcast on YouTube. Go check it out. Give us a like. Give us a subscribe. Give us a comment. Feed the algorithm gods. And with that, we'll be right back with some interviews.
We cordially invite you to experience the Soulforge podcast.
On Soulforge, we chat about movies, books, and pop culture,
Sex, love, and dating.
travel and adventure.
Mental health issues.
We have interviews with musicians, authors, entrepreneurs, and other random weirdos. Join Sean
And Leah.
and the occasional animal interruption on the Soulforge podcast.
Be a better human with the Soulforge podcast.
Yes, science!
And welcome back. We're sitting down with Kelly Fast of NASA and other things, here with the Cigar Nerds Podcast. And
My name's Courtney, and I also work with the ESO Network.
All right.
so, planetary defense. What is that, and why is it not aliens?
Well, aliens that's the squishy stuff. We deal with the hard stuff. So. But yeah, that's a good point. We were dealing with the natural objects and not the living objects. Planetary defense is looking for asteroids before they find us. Essentially, asteroids and comets whose orbits bring them into Earth's neighborhood, and trying to get them cataloged and figure out where they're going to be in the future. Try to determine if there is a future impact threat that Earth might face, and then also handling other things that would be related to that, like working with other government agencies, with our international collaborators, looking at possibilities for mitigation, like NASA's Double Asteroid Redirection Test, DART mission, doing a test of asteroid deflection, looking at how to model impact effects in order to be able to pass that along to relevant agencies like FEMA or to international collaborators through the State Department. So kind of that whole range there. But fortunately, an asteroid impact is something that's very unlikely in our lifetimes, but you don't know until you look. And so that's what planetary defense is about.
We assume there has already been one, like, billions of years ago. That's the what we think got rid of the dinosaurs. So it's like it's not out of the realm of possibility. In that scenario, how kind of likely are we able to prevent something like that? And I mean, how kind of far out are we able to detect those things with our kind of current technology?
Right. Well, the good thing is that we have the power to avert a possible natural disaster. It's the one natural disaster that you could prevent, and the power comes from the information you can get ahead of time, and you could find an asteroid, predict an impact, and then the goal would be to have the luxury of time to do something about it. And so the first order of business, the bread and butter, is to find the asteroids. That's something that's ongoing with projects that NASA funds to using telescopes to survey the skies every night and try to find the new moving points of light that haven't been previously cataloged and determine their orbits. And then in the event something is discovered that could pose an impact threat, then to look at those possibilities for mitigation, what the effects might be, or perhaps emission. There's a lot that would happen in between. And again, the thing, it is unlikely to get hit by something big, but again, you don't know until you look. Earth is hit all the time. You see shooting stars and fireballs, and then the larger the objects, the fewer there are. So, and the nice thing is, the really large ones, like when you hear about people talking about an extinction level event or something that's really large. For the asteroids, most of those we would have found by now. There are fewer of them. They're larger. They're easier to find. And not many are found of the larger than 1 kilometer near-Earth asteroids anymore every year. There's just a few maybe each year that are found. But it's the ones that are smaller but can still do regional damage should they impact the Earth, and so trying to keep things moving on that. And one thing that NASA is also doing, already every night new asteroids are discovered, but it's at a rate that it's just not fast enough. And Congress has tasked NASA with finding those asteroids in this kind of mid-size range that could still do regional damage. And so NASA is developing the Near-Earth Object Surveyor mission, which is an infrared space telescope that'll launch in 2027 fall that's optimized to search for near-Earth asteroids. And so in concert with the telescopes on the ground, that will speed things up. And that gives us the luxury of time. If something is discovered, the goal would be to find it years or decades in advance. It's not like the movies where the asteroid's making a beeline for the Earth. The Earth is going around the sun. The asteroids are going around the sun. It's kind of like, cars on, the beltway around a big city.
Nothing's actually stationary. We're all in constant.
But it might be a few trips around the beltway into the future that two things might come together and hit each other. And so to have that luxury of time to know way ahead of time, and then you can then address it and not have a hair on fire situation like the movies.
So I'm just curious, what was your inspiration growing up to get you into the STEM field?
Okay, that's interesting because we were talking. It's wonderful being here at DragonCon because some of that is represented here. Star Trek, of course, for me, and I'm not quite old enough to have seen it when it was first aired, but very soon after, and that was very. A big influence on me, that, and then also another show, Space 1999, that we were talking about, and a lot more obscure. But even here at DragonCon, I saw somebody in costume, and I on the escalator, and I haven't been able to meet them yet, but the visuals and the music and the spaceships and everything in these series were just I guess just so inspirational for me. Somehow I got it in my head that I want to be an astronomer, and I didn't know what that meant. For those shows to have inspired me, maybe I should have been an aerospace engineer or something, but I wanted to be an astronomer. And that's what I loved doing as a kid. I would take my telescope out. And I grew up in Hollywood, California, so we had light pollution. But you could see the planets. And I ended up in my career path doing planetary astronomy, and then now working in planetary defense, which relies heavily on astronomy to be able to find out what we need to know. So it does go back to some of those shows that inspire so many of us, whether or not we go into the STEM fields, Star Trek, and then also for me, Space 1999.
Yeah, go ahead, Brett.
So one of the questions that I like to ask is, we all see the Hollywood big blockbuster productions, from a disaster movie standpoint, do you have a favorite that sort of maybe gets some things right, and one that's just completely over the top, that's just fun? And
the science doesn't add up for this
right.
particular one, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and I guess everybody points to Armageddon, where it's like, we send miners out there to go blow it up, and that's often what happens. You got to blow up the asteroid. But as we saw with the DART mission, really what we want to do, if we can, is just like deflect the asteroid. And I guess we haven't seen that so much in the movies. But like in terms of favorites, old one, I liked Meteor from the 70s, and I did enjoy that. The one thing about the movies, though, it always seems like it's just one person or a few people trying to convince everybody what's happening, and really it's the data is very public, and there's a lot of people working on it, so different in that sense. I guess one thing that does come to mind, although it wasn't a very family-friendly movie, but later on, Don't Look Up. Because in the beginning, one of our colleagues, Dr. Amy Meinzer, served as a consultant on the movie, and so she tried to get in there some accurate things about what might happen. That yes, you have to get multiple observations of an object to be able to turn it into an orbit. Then you look at an impact probability. When the comet was first discovered in the movie, the background, it was a Neowise image from the spacecraft Neowise, and so it was an actual image on the sky. And even little things, she jokes about how that astronomers there needed their snacks at night, and like, I've done astronomy late at night, and you need the snacks, and so. But trying to get some of that right about how that plays out, and even like. I remember the concept of peer review. They were dropping that in the movie, but has that been peer reviewed? Not just somebody coming up with an idea, but making sure that other experts are looking and giving feedback. And so I guess all of these movies they all go off in their strange directions, but they probably all have little kernels of truth that
nuggets
you
could
of
truth here and there.
And sometimes you don't have to sensationalize, because the truth is pretty cool itself and fascinating.
Well, I think with an extinction level event, at that point, it's no one country's issue. That's, something that, hey, we got to put all politics and everything else aside, and if we stand a chance, maybe the world's ready for. What's the probability of Apophis again?
Well, that's interesting. You talk about like international collaboration and Apophis. So this is something that we're all kind of looking forward to. And the neat thing about the background of Apophis, it was an asteroid that when it was discovered. At first thought maybe it was going to hit the Earth, and it turns out it's not. But we get buzzed all the time with small things coming close to the Earth or within the distance of the Moon, and then we get hit with maybe asteroids that are a couple meters in size. They make a nice, pretty fireball. This is an asteroid that's like 340 meters in size that is going to pass within the distance of the weather satellites. It'll be visible with the naked eye from Europe and Africa, but we know it's not going to hit. And we had a couple of years ago when it was, the way that we play tag with asteroids in the solar system is we go around the sun and they go around the sun. there was an opportunity to observe Apophis, and just get some more data on it from a great distance. And as part of that, and that was something that was done worldwide. It was a campaign of the International Asteroid Warning Network. There is actually an international collaboration recommended by the UN, and we used that as a sort of an exercise to observe Apophis, treat it like it was going to impact, what are the things we would do. But through that campaign, just with the new data that came in, Apophis got kicked off the risk list altogether. So we're not even carrying it on the risk list, meaning it does not pose an impact threat for like the next century. And in fact, we don't know of anything that poses an impact threat, significant threat in the next century. There's some things on the risk list with these very low probabilities. So just keep an eye on it. But there is. By that
time, we'll have space lasers.
Yeah.
It'll be all good.
It's
Space Force will blow it up. It'll be fine by another 100 years.
but it's what we don't know about. That's the problem, and so that's why it's we just got to keep looking, and so and try to advance the capabilities to keep looking.
So far spoken mainly about the asteroid, meteor, all that. What about like the closer stuff, like the kind of just space debris that's up there? We got all these like satellites and 50, 60 years of just dumping junk into into space. How like, I guess, I don't know if it's a threat to the planet, but definitely from like future space travel, it's is that something y'all are also kind of looking into?
We're not so much involved in that directly because it's not in our realm of responsibility to track the artificial objects. U.S. Space Force does that, and then of course the NASA Orbital Debris Office to look at threats to the space station or to human exploration. But it still passes within our field of view, and those who are searching for asteroids have to be able to. As you're looking for these moving points of light against stars, an asteroid's going to look like a point of light. A piece of space debris is going to look like a point of light. But these people are very expert, and they've got great software and everything for trying to disentangle the natural objects from the artificial ones. They often will move a little differently, but every so often something or things are in the catalog. Space Force and Space Track, they keep a catalog of objects, but every so often something that isn't in the catalog, right, will get flagged as a possible impacting asteroid, but
it's
small.
Like that
but
wrench Neil Armstrong lost. It's not an actual.
Yeah, but it is. I mean, certainly it is it's something. It is a concern for exploration in Earth's orbit with or activities in Earth's orbit. They have to keep track of all the debris and move spacecraft. They've done this before, where they've moved the space station, or they had to take some actions. But for our role in it, it's really more just trying to disentangle, the stuff that's. It's funny, like for the astrophysics community, the asteroids are the vermin of the solar system because they cross through their images, and similarly with the satellites. But for us, we're looking for that vermin, and now we've got like the satellites passing in front. But being able to disentangle it, and it's not something that it's a nuisance at this point. I think it affects other fields of astronomy much more, where they need the whole images. We're not interested in. We're just interested in finding those points of light. So it's a nuisance, but it'll become more of a nuisance as there's more and more debris and satellites and such in space.
Well, I know earlier you spoke about how much you love Star Trek and how much that influenced you. What other genres are you interested in, and does any of that influence your work, or does it help with what you're doing?
Oh, I'm not sure the answer to that question. What other genres influence me besides?
Other things that you like besides you work in science. But are there other things that spark your interest?
Oh, just other activities. Yeah. Okay, I was thinking like, okay, what other areas here at Dragon Con? Well, I guess for me personally, I'm a mom, and I've raised kids. I mean, and actually my daughter is now a dentist with the Navy, and so I joke and say that she's the useful doctor and I'm the useless doctor. So, yeah. And my son has been successfully like flipping houses, and so I'm so proud of my kids, and so that was a big inspiration. I never tried to force like STEM careers on my kids or anything, and they just kind of saw how weird I was that I would dress up in a Star Trek uniform to go off to give a talk at a convention or something. But then along the way, it was interesting seeing some of the tendencies that came out. Like I'd see my son modify, like he modified his Nerf guns to shoot farther, and I saw these engineering tendencies come out. And then my daughter ended up loving chemistry, but that was more of an avenue for like going into the medical field. And so I just kind of saw these things come out without me forcing it. But so they've become my inspiration because I feel like they've kind of found all that on their own. Other areas for me, music. I love music, and I'm a musician, and I think that happens a lot, I guess, in science and engineering. They end up doing music too.
Crazy crossover. I mean, you got like people like Brian May and like, like scientist and like rock star.
Yeah, I know something about whatever's going on in the brain, and I love computer programming too, which and I wonder if part of I find there's a creative aspect to that also, and I don't get to do it so much in my current job, because when I was really working as a research astronomer, I'd be programming up the tools that I need, and now I'm more of a bureaucrat at NASA headquarters. But lately I did start working on a tool I needed just to be able to handle some of the program management work that I do, and so in a way that was like a creative outlet. And then there are other things. It's like I'm a ham radio operator too. Although life has gotten so busy that I haven't been on the air lately, and so I would love to get back to that, to really get to enjoy that again. So there's some other things that happen, but really with all that's going on, it's pretty much the NASA job and the family.
So what I'm hearing is. We all need to get ham radio operator license, because if stuff's really about to hit the fan, that's where we'll know first.
How we listen into the NASA stuff.
They always say, when all else fails, ham radio.
So, what advice do you have to, say, the younger people now to kind of, I guess, smooth the career path to get to doing stuff like you do? What's like the early steps you recommend kids or whoever doing?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think especially now it's just, I don't know what it is about just maybe the world and the intensity of social media and our devices, and then coming out of COVID and everything. I got to hand it to that generation. They've had to handle a lot. But I guess just... if you have an interest in something like a STEM career, to pursue it in school, but also watch for other opportunities. Like NASA has internships, for instance. There's intern.nasa.gov shows internship possibilities. Those tend to be more at the college level, but I guess watching for such opportunities, and also just pursuing in school, but being flexible. I know for my career path, I went down a road and it ended up meandering, which disturbed me when it was happening. But later on, looking back, I'm like, that was really, I saw how that really kind of helped me in the long run. Gave me more of a breadth of knowledge and experience, and essentially, like, I didn't go right through all the way to the PhD. I ended up stopping for a while, and I was working at NASA, and I was having babies, and and then eventually they kicked me back into grad school. But by then, I approached it with kind of more of a vision for what I wanted to do. And then I never thought, I thought I would always be doing research, and I then found myself at NASA headquarters running programs, which I always say, no kid ever says, I want to work at NASA headquarters when I grow up. But again, it's a situation where I wouldn't have planned it like this, but I see things that have happened through my career that have contributed to the knowledge that I need now to do the job I'm doing now. And so I guess all that is to say, start down a road if you're interested in an area, but don't get too fixated, because opportunities might pop up, and listen to here's another thing, like find a mentor and listen and get lots of input from people. You might find that that path that you think you want, other opportunities open up, or it might meander in a way that you weren't happy with at the time. But then, there's always a brighter side to it, and so I guess just being open and flexible. And again, as we've seen in the world right now, things like COVID come up.
Important.
Adaptability is very important. Yeah.
We're kind of getting there at the end to wrap it up. You got anything else, Brad?
Nope, I'm good.
Well, kind of as we, I guess, wrap this up, where can people? One more question. What's the kind of the next thing you're looking forward to that y'all are working on? What's like the future project that you're excited about?
Right. Well, I mean, as always, just the day-to-day of planetary defense, I think, is very cool. It's not smashing a spacecraft into an asteroid, but it's sometimes even more important, the finding them. But there is another mission in the queue, NASA's Near-Earth Object Surveyor, or NEO Surveyor, which is a space telescope that is being designed to find near-Earth asteroids. It will be in space and survey the sky in such a way to find the asteroids that are of greatest threat to Earth, the ones that are actually coming close to Earth's orbit and could be at the same place at the same time as Earth sometime in the future. So that's it. It's maybe not as sexy as DART, but it's very exciting, because that is something that would that in concert with the ground-based measurements, somehow through all of that we might find that asteroid that could impact Earth, and then we need to start going down the route, looking at the possibilities of deflection or whatnot. And so that's really exciting. This is something, Congress tasked NASA with doing this. Back in 2005, they tasked NASA with finding these more mid-range asteroids that could pose regional pose a threat to Earth, regional damage to the impact. And we're not where we need to be with how they tasked us. But we're on the right path now, so that's exciting. It's like we're going to finally get there. So the NEO Surveyor, and then just the day-to-day. I'm really very honored to be working with so many people who are doing such amazing work. The ones who are out at the telescopes every night doing the surveying, or who are doing the orbit computation, and or our international colleagues. Just last night, I was sending out emails setting up the next International Asteroid Warning Network meeting next month, and so. So for me, that's exciting. I'm very honored. But the next big thing, NEO Surveyor.
Well, with that, where can people follow y'all, follow NASA, find out about what are you doing? Plug all the things.
Right. Well, you can follow us on X at Asteroid Watch. That's the NASA Asteroid Watch account. So you can follow us there, and then you can go to nasa.gov/planetary defense to find out more about what happens in the Planetary Defense Coordination Office and the different activities and the Near-Earth Object Observations Program and other things that we do. So those are maybe the main areas there.
Awesome. Well, thanks for your time, and have a good rest of your con.
Thank you.
And welcome back. Today we are here with Dr. Emily Zarka. Am I pronouncing it right? Good, because we've been up for far too long, so it's... You've been here before, sir. You can have the first question.
Yeah, so great to see you at your panels yesterday. I taught both Alternative Worlds and Alternative Monsters.
Awesome.
It was fun seeing you on stage with Ed Greenwood. What was your prep like, your experience like, and any takeaways after those panels?
For the other worlds, I actually did have to do quite a bit of research. I was tangentially familiar with quite a few of the different underworld, afterlife, celestial realm, but not well versed enough that I felt like I could, teach a class on it. So I did do a lot of research prep for that one. I think the monster panel was a little more organic, because that's truly my wheelhouse. The weirder monster, the better. And I was just so impressed by both panels. Of course, by the audience. One thing I really love about Dragon Con is that I feel like the audience and the people here are so passionate about the subject, so respectful of one another, and ask just such really interesting, smart questions. So it's truly a joy to be on those. But what did you think of the panels? Which was your favorite?
I really liked the conversation with you and Ed Greenwood.
Mm-hmm.
The organic conversation that came out of it, and the two different perspectives that you and Ed Greenwood have, they were really great contrasts to each other, and informed it. I love the academic perspective that you bring into it, and then Ed Greenwood is such a storyteller, right? So it was really cool to see both of those perspectives being presented.
It was an honor to meet him and be there on stage with him.
Was that your first time meeting Ed?
Yes.
Greenwood?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
So, how do you turn a literature education degree into being the monster expert? How do those two things come together?
By being really lucky and really stubborn, quite frankly. So I have always loved horror. It's something that I've been passionate about since I was a little girl. Didn't really think it was an academic possibility. And then when I was getting my degree at University of Colorado, both my degrees, I happened to take 2 classes at the same time. One was about romantic literature. One was topics in popular culture, zombies, taught by Stephen Graham Jones, who's a phenomenal horror author, and I was not aware of that at the time. And I recognized what I thought to be a vampire character in a romantic poem and talked to my professor, and she's like, there's like Gothic literature as a study. And I was like, oh, okay. And there's really leaned into that, and that became the basis of my dissertation. And then when I was getting my PhD, I quickly realized that what I was doing with monsters and the undead wasn't necessarily accepted by everyone in the academic community. And I thought, well, screw them to a degree. Right. And like, I think that education shouldn't be, necessarily behind a paywall or have all these structures that are very formal. So I wanted to become a public scholar and really take knowledge to the people. And PBS is a great platform for that. So I cold pitched them the idea for the show. I know I said I wanted to do for monsters what Anthony Bourdain did for food. And they were like, oh, we get it. And since then, I've just really dedicated my life to researching monsters and trying to educate people through monster history as human history.
Yeah, like when we started prepping, I went back and watched a few of those episodes. Mm-hmm. I was like, yeah, I really like how you, really break it down not only historically, but like the psychology of what was going on in the world at those times, influencing the stories.
And that's how I approach all my research, even outside of monsters, is I would be called a structuralist. So yeah, I don't believe that things happen in a bubble. And that's what I think is really cool about monsters and the way I approach research is I'm not just pulling from just fiction or just folklore. I'm looking at archaeology and paleontology and like the politics of the time and art history and really just trying to immerse myself into the why this monster at this period. And so, yeah, I've come up with some cool theories and discovered a lot of really cool facts along the way.
So, last year, we talked about how you were a little hesitant to get into the hobby of tabletop gaming.
Yes.
This year, hearing you at the panel saying that you're prepping for your very first campaign, that's so exciting.
I am.
Yeah.
Again, it just seems like a natural progression, and there's so many people who are passionate about it, and obviously being here with the tabletop track and alt history tracks, it just seems natural and so fun, and I want to
some
be
monster-themed
I want to be
games.
involved in the community more. So I was just talking to someone, and I'm like, I think I want to become like a GM for like Tales of the Loop, and they're like, oh, that's like kind of hardcore. That's like not, and I was like, oh, okay.
Jump straight in the deep end.
Yeah. I just
heard of that one.
It's really cool. Yeah. I just fell in love with the world. So I have the book. I'm studying. I'm like getting ready. Yeah, it's an alt history that actually you play as a kid. So your character is 10 to 15. The younger you are, the luckier you are, which contributes to the dice rolls and stuff. So it just seems fun, and I'm excited to dip my toe in that pond and hopefully play some campaigns virtually with some people before next year's Dragon Con.
Yeah. And I know that Ed Greenwood already said it, or somebody said it, that you definitely don't need to learn everything before getting into it. But I know, like the way that I picture you coming from that perspective of so much knowledge is that you have all of this information about these monsters, and I think the mystery that you can surround by giving these hints, because you know so much about them, is really going to inform your storytelling.
I hope so. I mean, I've read a lot of stuff, and so I'm already coming up with ideas, even just thinking with Tales from the Loop of like, oh, this could be like a fun thing to bring in. So I just have to start writing those down so I remember them. But yeah, I'm excited to start storytelling in a different way and helping other people tell stories.
So with the show, what is your kind of bucket list monster that you've not been able to do an episode on yet? What if you could, like, what's the number one you're like, we have to do this at some point?
Honestly, it's one that some people probably wouldn't consider a monster, is the Thunderbird tradition. It's in a couple different indigenous peoples' histories here in North America, and I just thought, I was honestly trying to do research to make it an episode, and I was like, this is way too big. I can't just tell this, in 10 minutes. So I'm hoping that to get a platform, or maybe I'll be able to do a documentary or like a longer form on that one. So Thunderbird would be great. I'm really interested in delving more into some of the Japanese yokai. They're just crazy and out there and so much fun. I can't remember the name of it right now, but there's one monster in that tradition that's like an evil umbrella, which sounds great and
There's
funny.
Some strange Japanese,
but also
like,
terrifying though, because it's that idea that something so mundane or seems inanimate could then actually be dangerous.
It's like the D&D mimic, It's like the treasure chest that eats you. It's like, oh, it's raining, and I'm dead.
Are you familiar with the video game Prey?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like that's a mimic. That's a mimic. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. Yeah.
So there were some projects you were telling me about that I was excited to see come to fruition. The serial killer audio cast, like painting serial killers as monsters. I was really excited to hear that came out. Yeah. So that's still pretty fresh. Like
it is
6 months or.
No, it just came out last month, so they pushed it to the release. So yeah, Serial Killers, Real and Imagined is the series that I wrote for Audible Original, and there's tons of true crime stuff out there. I prefaced it when they approached me like, I'm not a psychologist, like I can't really speak to that. What I can speak to is pop culture and how we make narratives both from real and fiction. And so that's the approach I took. Yeah, so the series looks at serial murder, but more the archetype of the serial killer as a monster trope, and sort of how that evolved. So I start with Elizabeth Bathory and go, all the way to the fanatic true crime sort of wave we're seeing right now, and giving my take on why I think that happens, and end up talking about werewolves and vampires and Hollywood and media, and it was a lot of fun. And definitely I also voiced it, like I read it, which was interesting. That was my first foray into sort of like vocal acting. They're probably going to hate that I'm going to say this on an interview, but whatever. I had laryngitis. Which I did not tell them, obviously, and got through it, and it kind of worked for the subject. But if you're familiar with the show or me, it's a tiny bit noticeable, like some of my A's, but other than that, I think it turned out great, and I would certainly do it again. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. That's like, we go too hard. It's like the next day, it's like really gravelly. I'm like,
yeah.
it sounds impressive.
Cool. Yeah. And it's like throat coat tea and honey, and it's still not doing anything. I'm like, I'm just gonna roll with it.
Oh, so your the history of zombies, like how. Like, most of us think it's like, oh, that's like George Romero of the 60s, but how deep is, like, zombie lore?
Oh, incredibly deep. Yeah, Exhumed: A History of Zombies was my project with PBS, and I'm grateful they gave me the opportunity to tell that story. The Undead was how I actually got into monsters way back when I was a little kid, into horror. Zombie movies and vampire stuff was like the first horror I really remember consuming, or like adult horror. And kid horror. Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island is like terrifying, in my opinion. Yes. And I kind of always knew there was something there, even as a kid with Night of the Living Dead, what was going on with like culture and race in that film. And started learning more when I was actually getting my PhD, and realized when I started the show with PBS, they're like, oh, you can do a zombie episode. I'm like, no, I can't, because it is so deep. So the zombie tradition goes back originally to the practices, the spiritual practices largely of Western Africa. And then we wouldn't have zombies without the slave trade. Essentially, Vodou, which created the zombie, emerged in what is now Haiti because of slavery. So there were all these disparate people who were sort of forced together from different cultures. They spoke different languages, but as a form of resistance and survival to keep, their culture alive, they created a new religion. And the thing about the zombie is that what is worth in than being enslaved in life would be being enslaved in death by one of your own people.
There's no escape.
There's no escape. You can't go back to like the ancestral land. You can't join the spirits. So that fear, I think, was very palpable, and something that is directly related to the slave trade, which is something I think that Hollywood doesn't like to acknowledge all the time. I'm constantly asked, like, oh, well, what's an accurate representation of like Vodou in popular culture? It hasn't happened yet, at least that I'm aware of. So that was really interesting too, and I had the privilege of speaking to Vodou and Voodoo practitioners for that documentary. And it's important to point out that, and this is true for other monsters as well, that monster exists for those people. It's not just fiction, and it's not necessarily Romero zombie, and it's not the 28 Days Later zombie, but it is part of their culture. And I think that that's an important message for people to know too. And that's how I approach monsters, though. It's a form of connecting with other people, and I think that I learned a lot from that, and I keep learning every day through monsters.
People keep on saying that we live at unprecedented times in history, and there's a lot of stories being told about what's going on in the world, other people, and I was wondering if there are any monsters, any stories, any morals from maybe some older stories that we don't think about that you've found maybe poignant for current events.
Absolutely. I think that what it comes down to is we're more alike than we are different, and I think that's a really important message that people forget. And again, that's one of the aims I go with Monstrum and my monster research, is trying to make people see connections between cultures and histories through something that seems more approachable, like a ghost story, or a dragon or a zombie. And even just being willing to expose yourself to new ideas, I think is something that people could also benefit from. At least in monster lore and storytelling and folklore, usually the bad person gets their, just ends. That doesn't always happen, but more importantly, it's the people around it who learn from that person's mistakes. And I think that can also be something that would be beneficial in this day and age.
Awesome. What is your favorite kind of modern era monster?
Ooh.
We've gone deep into zombies and vampires and all the old. Who's this generation's go-to monster for you?
I love that question because I'm getting really into digital folklore. As a folklorist and someone who studies this stuff, obviously if I'm looking at an older monster like centuries, thousands of years old, it gets hard to pinpoint that like, oh, this is the exact moment this monster was created. And sometimes that's frankly impossible, but it's not. When it's digital, like you literally have the timestamp of the person, anonymous or not, who created that thing. So for instance, something like Slender Man or Siren Head, we know exactly the moment those things like hit the internet. And I think that's super cool and exciting to be able to participate with. And honestly though, I think my favorite current monster isn't one thing. I'm really into the SCP Foundation because it's digital folklore that's being told in real time, and there's of course like constraints to it, but I think just allowing a global community to participate in creating monsters and making this universe is something that is really cool, again from my perspective of wanting to bring people together with horror and monsters. And I mean there's everything from like a benevolent nightlight that protects kids to like crazy gory stuff, and I think that range is super exciting.
Definitely fallen many hours down the SCP rabbit hole.
Oh, it's great. And people do incredible stuff. Like, you're like, oh, I'm going to click on this one. And all of a sudden, you're in this whole website they've made about it. And I'm like, this is incredible. So, yeah, keep it coming. All of you who write those, keep them coming.
All right. So, I loved hearing about what your current fascinations were last time that we chatted. What are you reading? And you made the distinction between personal and professional last time, too.
Yes. They feel like they blur more now, if we're being honest. So, of course, I'm reading the Tales from the Loop book for sure. I'm also getting into haunted house type horror stuff. So I'm reading Spite House right now and really enjoying that. And, of course, I'm gearing up for my October horror comic where I, sort of share with followers, the stuff that I've been reading and loving. So that's coming up. But I just finished the Earth Diver series by Stephen Graham Jones, which isn't straight horror, but it's very interesting. Essentially, it's what happened if Christopher Columbus was killed. You could go back and do that. And I think a lot of people at Dragon Con would appreciate it because it's almost RPG-esque, and I don't want to spoil too much, but there's multiple characters go on multiple journeys in a way that feels like really organic and fun. So that's what I'm looking at now. And of course, with the slasher special, I've been watching a lot of slasher content, including some of those like 80s classics that I really, really like Slumber Party Massacre. Oh, yeah. Love it. So good. So that kind of content is just gearing me right up for October spooky season.
Yeah, it seems like the slasher genre is making a comeback where it's like,
it is.
For a while there's all like psychological or very like drama horror, and now it's like, oh yeah, we're back to just the mass slasher. Yeah,
I talk about this in the episode, but I think what's really interesting with slashers now that I've noticed is that when you have like the golden boom in like the late 70s, early 80s, the cinematography has dramatically changed to what it is now. And I don't just mean like tech has gotten different. We used to have like that POV shot in every single slasher movie, and now we don't. It's like we're sort of that omniscient viewer watching the slasher stalk people. And I think that speaks a lot in my interpretation to how we feel like we're being watched all the time with like social media and tech the way it is now and cameras. So that's kind of my interpretation of why it shifted. But yeah, I'm all here for this neo-slasher renaissance. Give it to me.
All right, well, we've talked to scientists, and when they're like, we need a break from the real world, we go hard into fantasy. When you need a break from like the horror, what's your palate cleanser? What's your thing to?
This is so embarrassing. My two things would be paint by numbers. I love me a good paint by number. I'm doing some like Halloween ones right now, and then reality TV. I love trash reality TV, and I actually got into that a lot when I was writing my PhD because it's mindless to a degree. Oh, so yeah, I don't have to think about it. So those would probably be my top two resets.
All these people have way worse problems than I do, so I feel better about whatever's going on.
Oh, I don't act like that, so I must be fine. Yeah.
Would be remiss not to ask. for any of the names of the reality TV shows you're
Oh
watching?
my gosh.
My partner is very
Okay.
interested.
Vanderpump Rules in its heyday. I've embarrassed to admit I've probably watched the entire Vanderpump Rules series 5 or 6 times. It's a lot. It's like a comfort watch. The same way some like Halloween or Scream or comfort watches. So that one and any Real Housewife, frankly, I'm into it. I also get really into like the seasonal cooking reality shows. Those are fun too. Yeah.
Well, looking at the clock, I think we got to about wrap this up. Okay. So, where can people find you? Find what you're doing. Follow. Plug all the things.
Plug all the things. People can watch the latest episodes of Monstrum on YouTube on PBS's Story channel. We're also on the PBS Passport app. If you want to know more about my work, you can go to www.drzarka.com. I also have a social media presence on Instagram, Dr. Emily Zarka, and I read every single comment on the Story channel, every single one. So if you want to say hi anywhere, feel free to do so.
All right. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. This was so fun. Yeah.
Have a good rest of your con.
Thanks. Y'all too.
And now it's time for blowing smoke.
All right, and this is our interview with Timothy Zahn, author and creator of Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Something that's been very exciting for me, actually, is I'm actually dipping my toes into Legends for the first time ever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been quite a journey. But something that I've discovered is there's a lot of misunderstanding about Legends now versus what it used to be. What do you think is the most misunderstood thing about Legends that new fans can go in and discover this whole new side of the franchise?
I think maybe one of the best ways to think about the Legends books are envision yourself around a campfire. Coruscant's a long ways away, the holonet fails periodically, so you don't get much news out here. And while you're on your second set of s'mores, somebody says, hey, have you ever heard the story of Luke Skywalker and Grand Admiral Thrawn? And he tells you this marvelous tale, and by the time you're in your sleeping bag, you don't know if that was true, based on truth, completely made up, but you enjoyed the story. The other way to think of it is Legends are Robin Hood, King Arthur, Paul Bunyan, Pecos Bill. It's good company to be in, to be a legend. But they're the stories you tell around the campfire.
I believe last time we spoke, you were in the middle of the second Thrawn trilogy, and now we've got a third trilogy, and the Ascendancy books was, I mean, very much like where he starts in the Legends as, if not a full bad guy, at least a little bit in the gray, working for the bad guys, to where he's the hero of his story and his people kind of in this. What was it like transitioning your character from that to that?
It really isn't a transition so much as defining of his purpose in life. His goal in life is the protection of the Chiss Ascendancy and his people. Everything he does comes from that that goal. So in the original trilogy, he's working for the Empire. He has seen the chaos of the Clone Wars. He expects the New Republic to fall the same way that the Old Republic did. He knows there are threats to the Chiss Ascendancy out in the unknown regions. He needs this part of the galaxy to have a strong, stable military he can draw on if he needs to. So that is why he throws in his lot with the Empire. These are the people I think will be best for me to use to defend my people. You can argue that his decisions went wrong, but the goal is still the same, and you can't argue with the goal. I want to protect my people.
Yeah, it was like I found that motivation interesting. Where it's like either I'm going to help these people become a strong ally or prevent them from becoming a threat, one or the other.
Yeah.
I know that you've answered this question probably thousands of times already, but how does it feel to have one of your most iconic characters in live action now? Of course, I'm talking about Captain Gilad Pellaeon.
Yes, that's very cool. Pellaeon is one of my favorites, and it's great to have seen him. I hope we see more of him in the next parts of Ahsoka. Maybe he'll get his own series. That would be cool too. And besides, and Thrawn is pretty good too.
Yeah,
yes.
he's also there. But
yes.
Honestly, they showed that clip of him in The Mandalorian at Star Wars Celebration. I leapt up. I was so excited to see him too.
I think one of the questions was, have you ever had, to Lars Mikkelsen, have you ever had that much reaction to a view of the back of your neck, the back of your head? Yeah.
Kind of building on that point, there is a lot of confusion with some fans about how involved you are with either the live action filming process or the animated process of writing Thrawn. Could you just clarify about how much you're into that process?
As far as input into the shows is concerned, nothing. They've shown me some things in advance. And with season 3 of Rebels, since I was doing the backstory in the book Thrawn, they were feeding me scripts, so I saw what they were doing. But I have not have any real consultation. They've not asked for any input. And they are very busy with other things. They know where to find me if they want me. But yeah, no, I haven't had any input into the series. I would love to have some. I generally put it this way: from our house to Lucasfilm, the Presidio, is about a 10-hour drive. I will make it in 8 if they call.
If I could piggyback off that question a little bit, I'm just curious. I'm very much a control freak, so how does it feel to kind of have to let go of some of that control for this character that you created?
You know, going in, that everything you write is property of Lucasfilm. You either accept that and grit your teeth, or you don't sign and go on to some other project. I would like to have full control over the character. I think my input would help just the same way Lucasfilm's and my editor's input help my books become better. Simply, it's another set of eyes with a different set of blind spots. But if they don't want my assistance for whatever reason, and there are a lot of good reasons, Hollywood doesn't think novelists know how to write TV and movies, that kind of medium. In many cases, they're probably right. We don't. I would love to have input into it. At the moment, I haven't. They have promised me a couple of times or suggested they will call me in at some point, but as I say, they're very busy with so many projects. I'm not really concerned that I've been frozen out or anything. It's just that they're too busy with other things to get in touch with me. I'm still hoping, but no, I have not been helping write scripts or anything like that.
Well, it kind of looks, at least the way Ahsoka wrapped up, that they're getting ready to maybe tell their new version of Heir to the Empire. Mm-hmm. If there's anything that they could pull from your original stuff, what's something you would love to see that we haven't seen done live action?
I can see them heading the direction of rewriting, taking the basic story and recasting some of the characters. I think it will work if they do it right. Filoni has a history of doing things right, certainly with Thrawn. So I would be very interested in seeing how that is. What I would keep, basic storyline, the only way to beat Thrawn is to give him something he can't anticipate or something he can't control. Because you give him all knowledge, all control, he will eventually win. But Filoni understands that as well. So, recasting the story, redoing the story. In fact, I thought about this years ago before the sequels. You could take the story and instead of Luke, Han, Leia, have their kids be the protagonists. That way you'd skip the generation the way Lucas had set up with the prequels and the classic movies. So there are a lot of things they could take from my books that would be good fit with what I wrote, and yet recasting, recharacterizing the various antagonists, protagonists, etc. The thing they would want to keep, of course, is Thrawn at the center point of it all. I met Rosario Dawson a few months ago at a convention, and she said, "I'm going to win." And I said, "You're going to have to work at it," which I think is the way you want to do fiction anyway. You want the good guys to win, but they have to make it. It has to be hard for them.
It needs to take a while. It's just too easy.
You don't want Luke Skywalker going up against field mice. You want him going up against a Demogorgon or something. So yeah, the stronger the villain, the stronger or more clever the hero has to be, and that's the best kind of stories.
How was meeting Rosario? How was meeting Rosario?
Oh, that was great. I am always amazed when actors actually know who a writer is, but she knew. We've met Diana Lee Inosoto. We got to meet Iman. I've always lose his last name, Ezra, and he was very excited to meet me, as vice versa. And Lars Mikkelsen is wonderful, of course. So it was a great weekend of meeting all the new cast of Star Wars, the people meeting up with Thrawn. We knew a lot of the animation voices as well, and they're all lovely people, every one of them.
You just recently brought up that Thrawn, if he has full control and full understanding, then he is going to win.
Yeah.
And back when Star Wars Rebels was on, he didn't have a full control or understanding of the Force. He spent 10 years with the Great Mothers, so do you think he's kind of filled in that knowledge?
It's not necessarily knowledge of the Force. Think of the last battle, Season 3 of Rebels. He has got the Rebels blocked in with interdictors, and he is going to move in for the kill. Okay, what are the things he can't control? One is Constantine being an idiot, pulling his thing out of his interdictor out of position. Second thing he's not in control of is he's been ordered to take prisoners. If he can bombard them from orbit, kill them all, he wins. And the third thing he can't anticipate is the Bendu. He can't anticipate that. But any one of those three doesn't fall that direction, and he will win that. So it's not just he doesn't understand the Force, it's also that when he's under control of somebody else, he never has full control, because that's just how military and political hierarchies work.
Do you think his time with the Great Mothers has given him like a new perspective?
I'm sure it has, and I'm guessing he spent some time with Ezra out there. That is my hope, that he will have something of that, a history before they fell out and Ezra went elsewhere. But we'll find out what Filoni has in mind. But yeah, definitely he'll have some more knowledge of the Force, and we'll see where Filoni is going with this. But he's got some really good potential set up for Season 2.
Several Dragon Cons ago, this was actually pre-pandemic, you had talked about that you had the story in your brain of the Ezra and Thrawn story, but now that Ahsoka has come out, has that kind of shifted over the years now?
There's a 9-year gap. Whatever Filoni has come up with for backstory of that gap, however detailed or not detailed, I know I could write it as a good story. The only question is when Dave will decide, okay, I'm set to turn this loose to somebody else, if he ever does. How detailed it is, I can work through any details that Dave has put into it. I didn't have a lot of story, just some basic ideas, knowing that we don't know the end point of that 9 years yet. Now that we do, there are a lot of factors I had not anticipated, would never have anticipated, but yeah, I can work these into a story. So many of us writers, give us something we can work with. We can do something with it. The next year is the 50th anniversary of the first story I wrote. Not the first one I sold or published, but I've been at this half a century. I've figured out how I write stories.
Congratulations, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
To ask about kind of the writing process, what from a creative standpoint, which is easier when you have no constraints, or if you're like, all right, I've been plopped into, say, the Star Wars universe, and here's my right limit and left limit, and not here. Is it easier when you have like kind of limits on what you can tell, or when you're just coming up with something just that you have full control out of?
In a sense, you never have full control, because once you've come up with your crazy idea, that leads to control, that leads to boundaries, implications, all of that. So if I come up with a great idea that you go between stars on trains inside a giant tube, the trains are going a light year per minute, that's a great idea. Now what are the consequences? And as I think of the consequences, the kind of society this will build, the restraints come in. And that is the way it should be, because if there are no restraints, then it's a dull story. Oh, Superman did this because he can do anything. You've got to limit Superman, you've got to limit your characters. So you can start with the craziest idea you want, but that will lead to the constraints. When I start with Star Wars, I've got those constraints already built in. On the other hand, all the readers know who Han, Luke, and Leia are. I don't have to introduce them, so there are trade-offs. I think I'd burn out if I tried to do Star Wars all the time, but I would love to be able to do one a year type of thing and mix it in with other of my own stuff.
We'd be fine with reading one a year. No arguments there.
Well, I think it's interesting that you have been able to kind of make your own little pocket of the Star Wars universe with the Chiss Ascendancy and the unknown regions. You're primarily the main person exploring all of that.
Yeah.
So, but what's that like to kind of be able to build some of your own rules and societies within Star Wars?
Well, that was great because when my editor proposed the Ascendancy trilogy, we were just finishing up the Imperial trilogy, which meant that we're running into where Ezra and Thrawn disappear. I've done post-return. What's left of Thrawn's life that hasn't been written? Well, there's this period before he comes to the Empire. So it was pitched to me as this is younger Thrawn, this is dealing with threats to his people out in the unknown regions, the chance to build the whole culture up, because everything that was written about the Chiss, some things of which I thought were, no, I don't agree with this at all, that's all legends, I can ignore it. So I could build the society and then build the characters and write a Thrawn story around all of them. So it was, and as you say, I'm not stepping on anybody else's toes. I'm way off camera over there. That was very much the ideal way to write Star Wars. Pick a place that nobody else is working in, character that I'm familiar with, create all the other characters that populate the Ascendancy and the threats around them. No, that was a lot of fun. I would love to go back to that when I can get Lucasfilm to hold still long enough to listen to story pitches. If you think Filoni is busy, Story Group is even busier because I've got all of Dave's stuff and everybody else's stuff to deal with. So, but I've got a dozen pitches to send to them next time we get a chance to talk.
My boy Eli Vanto is still out there. It's fine. Something you just said, though, you said that's all legends. I can ignore it. There seems to be this kind of contingency online, especially a negative one, that legends in the current canon can't exist together, which is silly in my opinion. But I would love to hear your thoughts about why can't they? Why can or they cannot exist together?
Well, I mean, there's some things that just can't be reconciled. In Legends, Chewbacca died. In canon, he lived through the sequels. So things like that there are a lot of things you can slip between the cracks. And some of these Legends things do not contradict anything in current canon. Now, some of those gaps may be filled in later on. The analogy that Bill Slavicsek used to talk about from West End Games was we are all, the novelists, the game writers, the comic book writers, we're all being allowed to play in George Lucas's driveway with our toys. If when he backs his truck out, some of those toys get run over, we have no cause to complain. The Thrawn trilogy is pretty near the edge. We've got a couple of winged a little bit, but not too badly. Other people, anybody who had done a history of Boba Fett, all that stuff got wiped out. People who killed Chewbacca got that stuff wiped out. So there are a lot of things that do not contradict current canon, but I can see Lucasfilm not wanting to, okay, this page is canon, these 5 pages are not, et cetera, et cetera. A good example in the third Ascendancy book, Lesser Evil, I have a lot of the history of Outbound Flight from the Chiss the Chiss sections of that Lucasfilm had no problems with me putting in. If I tried to bring any of the Obi-Wan Anakin in, they might have balked, but as long as it was just the Chiss, okay, Outbound Flight is Legends, but these sections, Thros and some of those other incidents, are now canon. So there is a sort of hybrid. The Thrawn trilogy is Legends, but Thrawn is canon. So there is a melding, there is a mixture going on in there. Anything in Legends that contradicts something that's been stated in canon, obviously the Legends gets crushed under that. Anything that hasn't, until it gets crushed, you can pretend it's canon, even if Lucasfilm doesn't say so. Headcanon is what we call that. So yeah, there are a lot of things in canon that don't contradict and would work fine. We did not talk about the Yuuzhan Vong, so maybe they didn't exist and all those books are out. On the other hand, they didn't say there wasn't an invasion between the classic movies and the sequels, so who knows? They're being very careful with that. They're using scalpels, not machetes, I think. Leland Shee years ago, before any of this happened, before the sale and all of Even Story Group, he said once that everything in Star Wars is somebody's favorite thing. And for that reason, you tread gently. You don't want to just knock out something because you don't particularly care for it if it's not in the way of something you need to do. Because somebody really liked that thing.
I'm probably the only Commander Keenan fangirl in the world. I love that man. He is my evil Hufflepuff.
And they brought the Green Bunny back in from the Marvel comics. So again, they're trying to not just lay waste to all of it. But when it's a conflict between what they want to do in canon and what the legend said, and frankly, the legends, I think there were at least 3 times Han got the Falcon from Lando that are contradictory. So legends did not hold continuity all that well sometimes either. It happened. We had a bunch of different people doing novels, a whole bunch of people doing comic books, games, etc. So my take is that when Lucasfilm decided to go, get rid of the legends, the attitude was, everybody get off the stage while we decide what we're doing, and we can invite you back in as we've got a spot for you. Not just Thrawn, but the Dathomir Witches. That was Dave Wolverton came up with those, and they came in as early as Clone Wars. So I can see why you don't want to have multiple timelines and the comics periodically clean out everything and start new. I don't think they like doing it, but they have to because it's gotten so overgrown when they're bringing a story per month out for each of these characters. So I understand, I sympathize with the why can't we have legends and canon, but I can see the point of view that would just be confusing to everybody. Let's try to keep Star Wars coherent, consistent, make a real history out of it. And these are stories people tell. And a real history works that way too. George Washington did not throw $1 over the Delaware. Did not cut down a cherry tree and tell his father he did it. So we've got these things coming into even real history, which we really ought to have down pretty pat by now.
Like Obi-Wan says, everything's true from a certain point of view.
Yeah. And a lot of things are false from any other point of view.
Yeah. I think they're probably getting ready to tell us to wrap this up, so...
I'm okay if you guys have time and they don't have anybody else coming in.
No one's throwing us out. Let's
until they throw us out. That
so
works.
What else are you? What's the new thing you're working on? We talked a lot about a Star Wars. What else?
The Icarus Saga. It's a 6-book series with a prequel I did 20 odd years ago. I'm finishing that up for Baen Books. I've got a series working with David Weber called Manticore Ascendant. Has no relation to the Ascendancy trilogy. We just happened to pick those, the same word modified. I've got a couple of short stories in the work. I've got some people have been talking to me here about game writing or some work for games. Various other ideas I want to pitch to various editors. I gave one editor today the 1-minute elevator pitch, and he said, sure, write it up. Talk to your agent. So... I've got things yet to do, and I'm still hoping that sometime it will pass that corner, and Story Group's ready to talk now. Let's see what you got.
You brought up Solo's 11, or Scoundrels, at the author panel the other day, and I really love that book. It's such a fun heist story. Are there other non-Thrawn ideas that you've got rolling around in your head that you'd like to explore?
There is the Obi-Wan story that I think would fit in, but they probably wouldn't let me do. It's the Obi-Wan dropping off baby Luke on Tatooine, then going off someplace making a loud nuisance of himself to draw attention away and let the trail go cold. Talked to John Jackson Miller. He said there are other Jedi who can do that. Obi-Wan's job is to babysit Luke, so that's probably out. I'd like to bring Talon Card back into canon. That would be good. There are other stories with other characters that don't involve Thrawn. In fact, there are a couple that don't even involve movie characters if they're worried about future series like Obi-Wan. I don't want to step on any part of the history. I could pitch a dozen stories to them basically right now. So I'd love to do more with Thrawn. I'd like to do more with the Chiss. But that's entirely up to Lucasfilm if they want me to do that.
Your Thrawn donut story was
The
very
Thrawn donut story.
I'm sorry, what?
Oh, Thrawn donut was my pitch for a Thrawn book that doesn't have Thrawn in it. Hence the donut.
I have heard this, yes.
You have heard that, yeah. And there was Pablo Hidalgo's idea of getting a lot of Star Wars artists to do pictures, paintings, alien art, and me doing Thrawn's commentary on them. Coffee table type book. The problem with that is, of course, hurting artists. Apparently as hard as hurting cats. So, again, lots of possibilities. One of the other problems, and it may be part of the problem I'm having getting Lucasfilm to sit down, is everything in Star Wars right now is a moving target. I've heard horror stories from Star Trek writers of, I'm halfway through a book, and the Next Generation episode this week just eliminated the whole thing, just circumvented it. I really don't want to be in that position. I don't think Lucasfilm wants me there either. So it may be until some things start settling down, or they've got a really full future history of what's going to happen. It may not be until then that they want to, okay, let's hear what idea you've got. Let's see if it'll fit here. So all sorts of legitimate good reasons for me not to have any Star Wars contracts yet. But as was pointed out, I'm 73 today, so, clock's ticking. I know the obituary now will never say he died tragically young. However, I would love to do more Star Wars, but as I said, when the Disney purchase came and such, at that point I'd done 10 Star Wars novels, about 19 short stories. If this is all I get to do with Star Wars, I've made my mark, I've had fun, I'm content. Repeat that with 16 Star Wars books. If that's all I get to do, I'm very happy with it.
So we talked the original trilogy, canon, new trilogy, or legend, new trilogy, new canon. Did Thrawn fundamentally change between that first three and the rest? Is he
Nope.
did you adjust him any for the new new books?
What changes is the environment he's among. In the original Thrawn trilogy, he is in command of the Empire. His difficulties doing politics never comes into play. He gives an order, they obey it. The Imperial trilogy, he's under the control of the fleet, the military hierarchy, and the political hierarchy. So he does not have full freedom of motion. Ditto with the Ascendancy, now he's under the control of the Chiss military and political system. So it's not that he has changed, it's just you're seeing a different side of him, and you're seeing how he deals with limited ability to do what he needs, what he wants to do, and what he feels needs to be done.
You kind of see that frustration of I could handle all this if y'all just get out of my way.
Basically, yeah. And we see this with other people. My wife is a very good organizer. And if people get out of her way, she can organize things. But sometimes somebody's got their idea of this, and no, it'd be easier that way, but you're kind of in charge of this area. But people who say they have no talent, you start questioning them, and, I can draw pictures. Well, that's a talent. No, it's easy. It's easy for you because you've got the talent for that. Organization, you can do that. Military, Thrawn can see what needs to be done. Other people who have jurisdiction over him may not see that. I think I've got a quote in one of I think Thrawn, one of his quotes, something like, a great commander can create a tactic. A less gifted commander can recognize it. Further down is someone who has to be shown to recognize it as a good tactic. And there are some who will never see it as a good tactic at all. And that works with any field of endeavor. And I imagine, yes, Thrawn is very frustrated by some of this stuff. fortunately, he's got friends who can help guide him through the labyrinth of the politics that he just does not deal with well.
So I wanted to touch base what you were saying about building off if you've only written those books for reading Legends for the first time and seeing your writing then versus the New Thrawn trilogy. It is interesting to see how much your writing has evolved over time. How do you feel that your writing has evolved in that time period? And are there things that you're proud of that you've gained new skills over time, like whether it's like writing women or people of color? How do you feel that you've changed as a writer in this time?
You see, I don't see myself as having changed at all, but then I've lived through it. If you read the Thrawn trilogy and then the later stuff, that's, 30 years difference. I don't know, I think I've gotten smoother at it. I think the plotting is better. I may be writing women better. I thought I wrote them pretty good before. One of the advantages, you talk about people of color, I don't have to do that in a novel. I'm very light on description because I want each reader to be able to envision themselves as the hero of the story. That's what I liked to do when I was reading growing up. And if there was no description of this protagonist, I could visualize myself being in that story. If they were described as a 6'3" Schwarzeneggian blonde Nordic, it was harder to do that. So I don't do much description. So if you see Eli as a person of color, great, go for it. If you see him as a southern redneck white, I didn't say one way or the other, so enjoy it. Once you go into comics and TV, of course, you now have to make that decision. But these are characters, they're not part of groups per se. And that's what I want to do. These are characters, enjoy them for what they are. If you see something of yourself in it, great. That's the idea of how the writer connects with the reader. You're seeing something of yourself in the characters. You're seeing something of your ambitions, your weaknesses, your strengths, and that's what makes the reader connect with the story. So I want to make that as easy as possible for the reader to do.
Did you ever put any of yourself into a character?
I'm stuck probably with some of that in general. I don't deliberately set out to do it, but if I look back, okay, yeah, I'm pretty good at this tactical writing stuff like Thrawn, but I really don't do politics very well. So in that sense, Thrawn is, to some extent, a reflection of me. On the other hand, I seem to write the politics for everybody who is not handicapped like that in the books reasonably well. So, no, I don't deliberately put myself in, but since I'm writing it, that's going to come in whether I plan it or not.
On the author panel yesterday, you mentioned how if you could go back, you maybe wouldn't have made Thrawn's name so complicated. And then you went and you made the Chiss Ascendancy, and you gave us 9 ruling families who all have these core names, and you had to continue making up all of So you just dove in more? You decided to double down?
I have to. I have no choice. I'm not going to rewrite what I've done. And I tried very hard, as much as possible, to keep the legends, stories, and details consistent with what I'm doing in the canon stuff. There are some places that it won't work. Thrawn does not come back visit the Empire between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. I had that in one of the books. So some of that stuff is gone. But as much as possible, and that involves the character of Thrawn being the same. So I'm certainly not going to go back and change the core name stuff. But yeah, if I had realized I would have a book where every part of his member of his family has a TH at the first part of their core name, I would have reconsidered all of that.
Did you try to think up for the new families that you had created? Were there any brainstorming sessions to keep them simpler, or was it just like, nope, they're all going to be...
It's all going to be this way. I will make all the core names as visually distinctive and sound distinctive as I can, so when you're reading it, you don't get confused. But yeah, I had all these families. I had each family, all the people in it are going to have these sounds, letters at the beginning of their core name. So, okay, that was a different challenge than I'd expected. I would have thought differently of that if I'd known this is where we were going. But this is it. So another challenge for the Green Hornet or something.
We're not going to get a Chiss named Steve anytime soon.
I could make up. I've actually people have asked me to make up Chiss names for
versions.
them. And what I do basically, I take part of the last name, part of the first name, and then weave in their given name as the core name. So you could have a Steve,
Please make a Steve.
but don't expect one anytime soon. I think that'd get bounced by Lucasfilm. What, Steve? And Biff? No, you cannot have Biff. Sorry.
Really?
I think that's a little too close to Back to the Future, and I think would probably get sued by Spielberg or somebody. No, let's see. He just did the third one. Never mind. Somebody would not like that.
Of the Ascendancy characters, after Thrawn leaves, like you said, you've got a whole list of things you're pitching. Is there anyone you would like to do a solo story on some of these new characters that Admiral? I'm blanking on the name. His best frame
from the movies and TV shows.
No, I mean from the new Ascendancy trilogy, like the new Chiss characters you created. Is there anyone there that you would...
Aralani would do very well as a lead character. Commodore Farrow from the Empire. Aralani's got the advantage that Eli Vanto will be with her, and a lot of fans of Eli out there. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the characters have built up enough fan recognition that, again, the Thrawn donut, where Thrawn is not present, but all these other characters are working together, I think that would do well. Again, it's persuading Lucasfilm of that.
I think that would do great. I'm trying to think of what you would call it, though, if it would still have, like, the Thrawn subtitle, or if it would be Thrawnless or...
Thrawnless?
That's what Candace said.
Not in Seattle. Thrawnless in Seattle would not be good. Ascendancy Challenge, or we'd come up with some kind of overall title. But yeah, we can. Titles are easy. It's pitching it and getting the people who own the property to sign off on it.
Listen, I want Thrawnless in Seattle. I'm still waiting for my Star Wars rom-com. First and foremost, give it to me.
I don't think I'm the right author to do that. There are other authors who would do that much better than I do.
Delilah would write an excellent rom-com. But in the Thrawn Donut story, what medium would you like to see that? Like live action or animation?
Oh, I'd love to see anything live action. I would love to do any of the Thrawn stuff. I would write a new Thrawn screenplay for them if they wanted, or consult, write a story that they might turn a real screenwriter loose on. Animation is always a second best choice. I'm happy to do animation if that's what they want to do. But yeah, I have scenes. Most of my books, if you probably noticed, are fairly visual. I can envision how this battle is going. I can envision this confrontation between these two people. So I think they would do well in a movie scenario. Okay, I'm getting into the characters' heads more in a book than I could in a movie. I can fix that. I can get it all in expression, dialogue, action, which is what you've got in a movie. But yeah, if they approach me to work on a movie or anything, tell me what you want, what era, what characters, I can come up with a story for that. As it's almost 50 years that I've been doing this thing.
Really good.
Yeah. So, where can people find you, follow you, and all those things?
Facebook, facebook.com/Timothy Zahn. I read everything people post and everything. I don't often answer a lot because I figure most people would rather I'm writing books at the time rather than spending too much time with social media. But yeah, I read everything that comes in.
Well, thank you for your time, sir.
And also on the front page, I don't know what they call it, the Facebook front page, and in the featured posts, Anna keeps a running list of conventions I'm going to with links to their website. So anytime a new convention is announced, she'll put that up, and so you'll see where I'm going to be in the future.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it.
And this has been a recording of the Cigar Nerd Podcast. We're your hosts, Smokin' Joe and Brad Jackson. Join us next time for more adventures in nerddom.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping for the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.